Tom Vecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory Podcast. We got a brand new name. Armchair NBA has been retired. We're back as a New Theory Podcast. We got a very special guest today. I'm really excited. He's in the green room. He'll be here in a second. He's launched his first ever book. Before we jump in, a shout out to our sponsor, JSV Capital Credit Repair. Everybody knows you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, car insurance, even life insurance is all predicated on great credit. So JSV has been offering for about 6 months or so, maybe about a year or around that time, has been offering credit repair. So without drop the link below to check it out. Tell them New Theory sent you. They'll give you $100 off the first month. All right. So without any further ado, Dee Snider, welcome to the New Theory Podcast. How are you doing today?
It says on there, I hope profanity is allowed on the podcast. I'm doing good, man. It's actually pretty exciting. Besides the fact that I'm promoting my first novel, any minute my fifth grandchild is about to be born. My daughter-in-law's in the hospital in labor, and it looks like this baby is going to break. I have like the family record of being 9 pounds, 15 ounces.
Damn.
Which is massive. I was the first of 6. So after me, the other babies just fell out of my mother, apparently. She had to use to hold them in with her hands until they were finished. But rumor has it that this baby is over 10 pounds. So I could break Dee's record.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a good day. But I'm great. Glad to be here talking to you, Tom, because I'm excited about this new adventure.
Wow. So, hey, God bless. Welcome back. I knew you were one of 6. You're the oldest of 6. I'm the youngest of 6. So it's cool to have that in common. All right. So we're going to talk about your book in a second. I'm really excited that, and I know Dee for a while, Dee has pretty much accomplished anything that you could have accomplished in music and life and so forth. But this is his first book. And we'll get to the reason why he's doing it, which is kind of interesting in my opinion. But first, for those, few people may not know you or didn't see our first interview, which those will be linked above for those on the rewind.
Okay.
Also, a bit about background, why you got into music, and then we'll continue from there.
Let's talk.
So you're from Long Island, but when did you catch the music bug?
Very early on. I was 8 years old. The Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, wow.
And that was a night that for many young people changed their lives, changed the world. It changed the world, period.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you perspective, now when a show has 1 million, 2 million, 3, 4, 5 million viewers on a given night, it's considered a hit. The Beatles had 72 million people watching that show, the Ed Sullivan Show. 2 weeks later, they returned, and 75 million people tuned in.
Jeez.
I mean, so this is when it was 4 stations, and then when you really could have an effect when you were on a show. But I didn't even see the Beatles. This is the magnitude of the ripple effect of their performance. My father was a really strict vet cop, hard ass, and he banned television in our house. Now, he said it was because he wanted to see us get back to making puzzles, building models, reading, talking, board games. But I firmly believe it was because our TV broke and he didn't have the money to get a new one. So he's like, no more TV. So while the world was being changed, I was building a fucking puzzle. But that next day when I went out to the bus stop, I mean, it was like an excitement, an elementary school bus stop. And what's going on? What's going on? The Beatles. Everybody's talking about the Beatles. What's a Beatle? Oh, they're a rock and roll band. Everybody was screaming. And as soon as I heard everybody was screaming, I said, I'm going to be a Beatle. And I wasn't even sure what it was, but I said, I'm going to be a Beatle. And that was the start. And I never veered off my course. I would be a rock and roll star if it killed me.
Well, that's what I find interesting because, like, you are, like, even under the headlines that heavy metal, that kind of stuff. So you're kind of like an artist, but you're also, like very very heavy metal centric. But you have a lot of range. Did that range kind of develop over the years, or did you have? You acted, you did Broadway. Like, that's what I love about you. I can see you like screaming like but then I see you like kind of respectfully dance around on stage. You got a lot of range. Was that developed over time, or did you always kind of have it and it came out naturally?
I think it was anything that was music. It was my solace. I had I found out I could sing,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, even better. I'm going to be a rock star and I have a voice.
Yeah.
So I was always in choirs, and I was in the drama club, and I was in anything magical singing, barbershop quartets. Like in school, just sing, 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 sing. So
Yeah.
I had classical training, even though in lockstep, I was always in a band. So while, by day I was singing in the school choir and the church choir every Sunday, by night I was practicing with my rock and roll band, pursuing my dreams of rock and roll stardom.
I love it. All right. So as you did a lot of stuff over the years, again, I've always liked Dee even before I met him. I loved him as Celebrity Apprentice. Give us kind of like what were some of your learnings about that, about business and life, and how did you were obviously an adult at that time, but what are some of your learnings kind of post Celebrity Apprentice?
I've done a lot of reality TV.
Yes.
I've done too much.
Yeah.
I remember there was a roast of Dee Snider a few years ago, and
Yeah.
Zach Wilde got up there and said, "Dee, you're surrounded by family and friends. This isn't a roast. This is an intervention. You got to stop doing all this reality TV." And it was true. It was off the chain. And what I learned from reality TV in general was a lot of it interacted with other artists, actors, athletes, whatever, is that we all had more in common than we differed.
Yeah.
That the things we dealt with, the career arcs, just management and agents and touring and performances. And, I shared on one show called Gone Country, I shared a room with Bobby Brown. Yes, that Bobby Brown.
Oh, wow.
For 2 weeks. He was my roommate on a Big Brother-esque show called Gone Country. But, so that was a big revelation. I was like, I'm a heavy metal guy.
Yeah.
And you guys are the pop, and you guys are a funk. But it was like, we have a lot in common. So that was a big thing. As far as The Apprentice goes, it is a far tougher show than is projected.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What you see, first of all, you're doing 2 shows a week.
Oh, wow.
So you see one show a week. It's like one after the other after the other.
Yeah.
It's nonstop. Then, you see 20 minutes of a boardroom. It was 2 hours. And women wearing gowns, men are wearing suits with ties.
Yeah.
They turned these hot TV lights, they turn the AC off in between takes, and you're just melting. So you wonder why people are melting down. Yeah. They've been working 16 hours a day around the clock. They're exhausted. Then they go in and these Klieg lights, and they're just like being grilled and arguing. So it's a much, much tougher show. And it's bizarre because it's make believe. Yeah. It's not real. They give you a task. You're going to put out a newspaper, and you're going to be judged on how many pages you sell. And somehow they get you invested in, oh my God, we got to finish the paper. It's got to go to press. And we're out there on the street corner. Get your newspaper here. Like what's going to happen? You're going to get fired from a fake job on a fake show? I mean, what's the penalty? I was on Jimmy Fallon, and he said, "How do you feel day after you fired someone?" "Oh, I was fired from a fake job, so I'm only feeling fake bad." I mean, it's not real. But that was a big education.
I love it. You're next to like a housewife, next to an actor. So I love that. One of the things I always admired about your career, we talked a little bit about this on the other show. Now, obviously, you had your ups and downs, but you always kind of find a way to stay relevant. I remember my son's a SpongeBob guy. One of your big songs were in there. Like you always just kind of like found a way to kind of stay relevant culturally. And just to give a little bit tips to somebody who's in the career action.
That's okay. I've had a little action in my life as well, and that's what happens. That's what comes from a little action.
Exactly.
You know what? It was funny. I saw a business magazine one day, and I was presented with it, and it had an article on branding, and it used me as an example of.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Branding, great branding. Yeah. And I'm reading it, going, "That's incredible." It's not even remotely true, but it's incredible that they're super analyzing. You see, Dee did this and this and this. I am just using the force, man. After falling dramatically in the by the early 90s, I just started saying yes to every opportunity. And one thing I did do is whenever possible, I put my name on it. So it's Dee Snider's House of Hair, Dee Snider's Van Helsing's Curse, Dee Snider's Strangeland, Dee Snider's, Dee Snider's, Dee Snider's. And for me, one of the big things for me was it went from when I used to walk the streets in the 80s, I would hear this sibilance. Twist, twist. People see me saying Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
But in the 90s and 2000s, I'm doing radio now. I'm doing all of a sudden I'm starting to hear that's Dee Snider. That's Dee Snider. And more often now it's more, hey, you're Dee Snider, and less, hey, you're that guy in Twisted. Way less, you're that guy in Twisted Sister. That's like decades ago.
And I love the and you can even tell me about it. I found out like a week before about the cameo in Cobra Kai, and I was watching it at the time, and I'm like halfway through, and you're like, oh, by the way, Tom, to get ready for Cobra Kai, and I'm like, oh my god, like I got excited. It was a dope.
And that was another. I tend to step in shit a lot with this stuff. Like so, I'd become friends with Billy Zabka on the convention circuit. And when we were hanging, he had told me, YouTube is doing a new show called Cobra Kai. And I was like, oh, that's great. But YouTube? Well, this is a couple of years before it even happened. Yeah. Like, okay, good for you, Bill. Go upward, onward and upward. Yeah. And then he calls me and he goes, listen, Netflix bought the show. And they're re-showing the YouTube season. Says we're shooting a new season. Would you want to be in it? And I was like, yeah, it'd be cool to hang out with you and Ralph because I know both of the guys. I didn't think anything of it. So I go down to Georgia. It's a big production. So I go, my wife goes, this is because she does hair and makeup. She goes, this is a big production. They're putting money in this. But all of a sudden, the new season comes out. COVID hit. Binge watching, and I'm on the show during the most binge show, and everything just blew up. People are like, holy crap! And once again, Dee Snider back in the Zeitgeist, and I've got these young kids who are coming to me going, I saw you on Cobra Kai, and suddenly I have value again. So I just seem to, by saying yes to everything, I get taken. What is it? They say Babe Ruth was a home run king, but he's also a strikeout leader. So I just keep swinging, and I hit it a number of times.
I love it. But you always put, respectfully to defend you, you always put yourself in a position to succeed, and that's what I love about you. Now, in business, like in life, but in business, they say you only need to be right once. And to break your chops a little bit, you were definitely right at least twice. I mean, you can't go to a sporting event, a big event, a political event. Your one or two songs have been played. Now, when you did one or both, did you know there could be breakouts? Were you surprised? I don't think I asked you this. Give me I Want to Rock and geez, we're trying to play.
We're not going to take it.
Yeah, we're not gonna take
somebody just asked me and said, do you know it's a hit when you write it?
Yeah.
And I say, yes. At least I said this could be a hit, but there's so many other obstacles along the way to getting it there. Will you have a record label that is going to support it? Will they put it out? Yeah. Will it get the exposure it needs?
Correct.
And now we're not going to take it. I'm blessed in the fact that I wrote that hook for that song in 1980, and I never finished the song. If I had, it would have been on our first or second album, which were on independent labels and didn't get an exposure. But instead, when I finally finished it, it was on Atlantic Records, and Atlantic Records decided they were putting, opening up their wallets, and they were putting the push on. And I had the song, I knew it was a hit, but interestingly, I had to freaking beg producer Tom Werman to put it on the record. He didn't want to put it on the record. And I'm like, dude, this is a hit. He goes, I remember he goes, it's kind of I go, it's gonna be more intense than that. And you gotta trust me here, man. And I remember he was sitting in a chair, I'm on one knee, like I'm begging him. I'm in the studio. Well, dude, he goes, and I Want to Rock. He didn't want to use I Want to Rock either.
Oh my God.
He said, I produced Motley Hatchet. I've already done that. Dun, 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 dun. I'm like, dude. He goes, if you want him, fine. That was his thing. He's made gazillions of dollars on songs. Gazillions.
Yeah. I was going to say, well, okay, so two questions. The first is things are different now because it's all digital, right? But when you popped back then, Would it be radio plays? Does your agent call you? Does a carrier pay? Like, how did you know you blew up? Because a little different back then, right? How did you know the song blew up?
So, the lay of the land back then was when you put out a new record, it took like 6 to 8 weeks to get into the system in America because the country was so big. So, meanwhile, you could release the record in like England, and it was a very immediate because England's the size of a state.
Yeah.
So we had success in England. So we release the record, we shoot over to England, and we go do a tour there. And we're hearing it's getting a lot of ads. We're hearing, just buzz. But we're not there. So we can't. It's just a phone call. Manager says, wow, the reaction's great. The reaction's great. We're not feeling it. I come home from England, and I go home, and my wife, Suzette, 47 years and counting. We're going, but she's always like brought me down to earth. I come home a rock god, and she just like goes, take out the diaper genie. It smells like shit. I'm like, what? I'm a god. She goes, take out the diaper genie. It smells like, okay. And now I'm back down to earth. She has a saying, leave your cool at the door. Because when I come home, ain't a rock star. You're dad. You're my husband. And act like one. And she's right. And I, God bless her. So anyway, so she says, and this was her, says, oh, I'm a god. She goes, came back from England. Oh my God. She goes, yeah. Baby, we need milk. We need formula. Go up to the store and get some. I'm like, okay. I get in the car, driving up to the store. I turn on the radio, and we're not going to take it's playing.
I love it.
I said,
okay.
Oh, that's cool. I said,
I love it. Yeah, because I think these are some questions I never asked you before that I always kind of wonder. All right, so now
it gets better. It gets better.
Go ahead, please.
I said, I wonder what they're playing on WPLJ. I pressed the button. We're not going to take it's playing. I said, oh shit. I said, what's playing on RCN? We're not going to take it.
Yeah.
All 3 rock stations in my area were playing. We're not going to take it simultaneously. And I said, we did it.
Like with your first royalty check, like $800, like you know what I mean? Like, it's different now, but when you got your first royalty check in, you remember how much it was? Just out of curiosity.
I remember I got my first 5-figure royalty check, and and then there was 6 figures to come, and 7 figures. But we were still living in this house, and we had to move out of it because kids were now were circling the house. But I said, I'm going to the bank to deposit this check. And I walked like a mile to the bank carrying this check, like I walked into the teller and I put it down. It was just such a traumatic, amazing thing. My first 5-figure check, tens of thousands of dollars. It was like, again, dreams come true, and I just was savoring the moment. I did.
But really quick, and because I like the business end, we'll get to the book in a second. You sold your library. I know you're still tied in. What was the decision to sell the library, versus holding on to it in perpetuity?
Yeah, Tom, we could roll a little bit longer on this one. A little bit longer. So people, it's math.
Yeah.
Okay, it's math, and I was told there'd be no math in rock and roll. But when you are getting your royalty checks every year, and they're big, I'm in the 50% tax bracket between state, and so they're chopping off 50%. But the capital gains on the sale of a property is like 15-20%.
At the time, that's right. It was lower at the time. Long term was 15. Ding, ding, ding.
So if you can get, they call it multiples. If they say we'll give you 10 years worth of royalties in advance, whatever that number is, when you do the math, you look at it, you go, okay, I'm going to save 30% on taxes. It's not even guaranteed that 10 years from now, I believe these songs will still have value. They're taking a chance. But I could take this chunk of change and I can invest it and secure it and make it my retirement fund, which I did. So it's like it goes from being a thing that comes in and you're getting half of it taken away by the government every 6 months to a thing guaranteed. Okay, I can work with this. I know I can work with this. So a lot of people are doing it for just that reason.
And holding on to that 30% is a huge incentive.
Yeah.
Now, because of the nature of the song or both songs, and again, he did like a 10-year probably based off the run rate, and then they paid you. But there's probably been bumps with that song, SpongeBob or a few other ones. Did you have any really big bumps where you're like, what the hell's going on? Surprise? Or did you know SpongeBob or Cobra Kai? What bumps did you have along the way? I was kind of wondering about that.
Where I Get Taken, I Want to Rock are the two most licensed songs of the 80s.
Really?
They're like We Are the Champions and We'll Rock You of the 70s.
Yeah.
So at first there was a lull after
Yeah.
the demise of the band and
Yeah.
when grunge came in. But all of a sudden in the I guess it was the mid to late 90s, they started to become this retro thing started with this resurgence.
Yep.
And so we started getting this licensing, and that was great, and it just kept going. But now the song is transcended, particularly When I Can Take It, and it's become almost a folk song, not like it's acoustic, but folk in the sense that it just is a staple, and so it's now taking on a life of its own. So it's not even a retro thing anymore.
Yeah.
It just keeps popping up, So you get a movie like, Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg's movie, and there it is in all its glory. I'm like, thank you, God.
Wow. It's going to sound a little weird. It's obviously a blessing. And I know one thing I love about you, you're a humble guy. But having kind of these two breakouts, and you have a great library and you're talented, a whole bunch of other stuff. It's funny because when I really kind of partnered up with Dee, I really was like, wow, this guy's done a lot of stuff. But is it a blessing or a curse to kind of have these two monstrosities and then have like a good career? Or, was it more of a blessing or a curse? And if so, why?
Look, there's two things. One is that people say, better a better one-hit wonder or two-hit wonder than a no-hit wonder. And as my manager, Phil Carson, he used to work for Atlantic Records. He signed Twisted. He signed ABBA. He signed Genesis. He signed AC/DC. The man's responsible for 375 million albums sold. His first signing was ABBA. Okay, the guy, and he says to me, my boy, he's English, if you're only going to have two hits, make them doozies. And because you got other artists who have better catalogs than me, but they're not getting licensed.
Correct.
There's not as much interest in these record radio staples or whatever, but they're not getting the licensing. And now money is in licensing,
Yeah. Well, you were like ahead of the game, and again, maybe by accident, but you had these like really let's call it a licensable assets, right? So kind of like even before the pandemic, even before, the money was made in the CDs and the albums, and then obviously then it's now like 360 touring, and the streams you make a little bit, but the real money is in the licensing. You were kind of ahead of the curve on that. Again, accidental, or you were like, you know what, I'd rather kind of hang out. I want to be with my family, less tours, and let me.
God, I wish I could tell you that it was some stroke of genius on my part. Other than saying yes to everything, the funniest thing is selling your soul at some points. You get these requests, and you go, "Good God!" I get this. This was a classic. So I get a call from Phil. My boy, we got a big licensing deal offer for a woman's premenopausal medication, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was a big commercial. I said, "Oh, Phil, come on, man. This is my art. This is my legacy. A woman's premenopausal. How much?" So he tells me, and it was like $300K or something. Like, I had two kids in college. I'm like, all right. What does it do?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Well, it helps with hot flashes. It reduces this, that. It cures vaginal dryness. I said, whoa. It stops vaginal dryness?
There you go.
So I'd be doing God's work? Who isn't against vaginal dryness? I think everybody can support that. Sign the deal. So I'm a whore, but I'm an expensive whore.
Did you offer spokesperson opportunity as well?
Yes. Here, try this. No, but you know what? It's funny. Somebody brought up, will you do anything?
Yeah.
And I said, actually, the answer is no. I turned down an opioid commercial, and they wanted me to be a spokesperson.
Oh wow!
And it was a big. It was not just music; it was my personality, it was my name. It was, but I'm going to be honest. I mean, to the audience, I'm too honest, and people at least, but they come to know that for that. I turned it around, man, and I looked. I said, "Okay, is there any way I can do this deal? Because man, this is a lot of money." But no matter which way I looked at it, it was a damn opioid thing, and my children had friends who died, and I just couldn't do that. So I do have, I am a whore, but I do have my limits.
Love it. Any other no's that like you kind of like, the fifth Beatle, any other no's that did it, like, Jeff Bezos early on, like, hey, you want to come to our launch now? I'm good. Like, you have any no's that just like, mess you up a little bit?
Yeah. Visit, come to the Playboy Mansion. Come to the Playboy Mansion. I know full well that when you walk in the grotto, they offer you divorce papers as you enter because you're going to be filing them on your way out. And I just was sober enough, smart enough to say, lead us not to temptation. I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude, and I want to keep my marriage together. So yeah, I said no to that.
Well, that's actually a good point, Dee. With like social, like think about your regular guy, right? You have social media, you got the ex from high school, you had all these different distractions to maybe kind of get you to, kind of veer off, from your marriage and from your life, right?
Yeah.
But you, for example, have 1,000x temptation probably versus a regular guy, but you always steer the course. You got a beautiful wife, you got a beautiful family. How did you do it?
Thank God I've made some sound choices. I've screwed up a lot of things. No, I have. But this is definitely, but that's not one. And I recognize that there was a big picture. And to quote Rodney Dangerfield, the late Rodney Dangerfield, the 3 hours of bullshit's not worth the 3 minutes of pleasure. And I'm grateful that I didn't screw that up, because so many of my friends, they don't have nearly what I have. I mean, they've had to, through divorce, give up the fortune that they made, and not that it's all about that. Give up their children.
Yeah.
Give up so many, and what do they really have? They've got, they traded in for another model, and I'm not, no judgment on the women or the men. It's like, what are you trading for exactly? So I was this certain, like, another thing is I never drank or did drugs.
Yeah.
Now when I was 13 years old, I drank for the first time, and I got on the ground, paralyzed, vomiting on myself. And I was a little voice, the sober voice, Lord, if you let me stand again. But the thing I realized at 13, I said, I was unable to control myself. I didn't just have a beer. I didn't have a shot. I kept drinking to the point of incapacitation.
Yeah.
And I said, you can't do this. And I was very young, but that was it. I never did again. And and my whole career, I was clean and sober. And that also helps you make better decisions, than when you're weak, when your will is weakened.
Yeah. So again, we talked about a lot of things. Now let's kind of seg to the book, Frats, based off true events. Dee Snider. I had to take a double take. This is your first novel. Why? Give us the why behind you wanted to do it to start off.
Well, it goes back to the Twisted Sister videos.
Yeah.
I co-wrote those with director Marty Kollner.
Oh wow!
And they were my ideas, but it was verbal. I said, well, I have this idea that this dad's yelling at the kid, and the kid turns into me, and he drags his father down the stairs, and like a Looney Tunes cartoon, and all of a sudden, there's people jotting notes and writing things down like, what, I'm genius. And now I've got, a huge crew. It was one of the first mega video productions. Got this huge Hollywood crew making everything I said come alive. So I really was like taken back. I was, wow, this is cool. So at that point, I started studying writing, particularly screenplays. And I've been working on screenplays, stage plays, writing articles for decades and decades now. Wow. So this was just, and I have actually two other books. I co-wrote a book called Teenage Survival Guide in the 80s. I wrote my own memoirs, Shut Up and Give Me the Mic, in about, was it 10 years ago now, or 8 years ago. And then I said, you know what? And we were in COVID when this started. I said, I was looking for something to do, something to challenge me, something exciting. And I said, I always had this idea. I thought it might be a screenplay. I said, I think it works better as a novel. And I'm going to write a book. And people, I can write. I've been writing for a long time. I can conjugate a verb. I can put together a sentence. I promise you, it's compelling.
He's actually a stickler because he corrects all of our copy all the time.
And it's a page turner. And so far, reactions have been really great. But more than anything, and I say this to the listening audience, challenge yourself and don't be afraid. There's great joy in saying, I'm going to write a book and writing the end and finishing it and printing it out and looking at it. And it may be all it ever does, but you said you were going to do it and you did it. So many people say, one day I'm gonna, one day I'm gonna, one day I'm gonna. Stop with the one day I'm gonna. Yep. And just give it a shot. And if it's don't let it overwhelm you. Baby steps. Just start on page 1. And what do you know? A few years later, there you are at page 375, writing the end, and go, holy crap, I did it. And it's such a great feeling if nothing else happens. But I'm fortunate to have got it published, and now people are reading. It's very exciting.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm only bringing it up because you brought it up. You obviously do some endeavors with kind of a financial, hope. There's no money in books. Do you think it'll be a second novel, maybe an option for film? What's kind of if you don't mind, because I know I'm going kind of digging behind the curtains.
No, yeah, you can. It's because I said I want to be a rich, famous rock and roll star. That does cheapen my effort with my band, because I was in the trenches for decades, working for next to nothing. But there was the hope, the chance at that time that you could strike oil, so to speak. You're like a gold miner. There was a chance. Now these poor bands don't have a chance. Yeah. With a book, I don't expect it to be a bestseller. I hope it is over time. People will hear about it.
It will be.
And the thing is, there's a chance you could make money off the book. There's a chance a studio could buy the rights to the book to make a movie out of it. Correct. So there's a chance, but it can't be. So I just need that chance. You know what I mean? It's not the sole reason. I wrote a musical called A Rock and Roll Christmas Tale.
Yes.
It was staged in Chicago and Toronto. First year didn't do super well. Second year in Toronto, we got 5 stars in the Toronto store. But we ran out of financing and money. We spent a lot of money staging it. Yeah. But now I've been approached and I've rewritten it as a movie. And they're interested in possibly making a movie out of my stage play. So as long as there's a chance that maybe one day it could become something more, and really it's more than that. It's that people, when you're working in your room and you're writing and typing and creating, you just want to know it, have people hear it and enjoy it, and hopefully they enjoy it. So that's more than anything, for people to see it, to read it, that means the world to me.
Well, it kind of goes with your strategy of like say yes to everything. And what is it? Luck is the opportunity meeting effort, and you have the opportunity.
Yeah, preparedness meeting opportunity. That was a great for me. I'm a Tony Robbins guy.
Nice,
and, that was a great. People, and that's another thing. Stop saying I don't have any luck.
Correct.
Bullshit. It is opportunity meeting preparedness. I'll give you a case in point. After I was in a band came out of the band, playing band at a club. Moved out of my family's house, ran out of money, had to move back home, get a day job. I didn't have a band. And I realized that I hadn't been singing in like 6 months. And I said, I got to get back in a band, because I'm not going to work on the loading dock forever. And a band's going to call me, but I got to be ready. The voice is a muscle. Yeah. So I joined a band just so I was rehearsing and singing. Oh, what do you know? 6 months later, call comes from Twisted Sister. Wow. They heard about me. And I go to audition, and I was ready. I was prepared for that opportunity. Okay, so people, and no one says I don't get opportunities. Everybody gets opportunities. Every day you're given choices. Go this way, go that way. But we've got blinders on. 90% of the time, we're walking around with blinders and just ignoring these moments where we have a chance to change our world, change our life, turn things around for yourself. And I'm not saying become rich, just something different when you're in a rut. And people just walk right by those opportunities. I just say yes.
So I'm proud to announce, we're going to do, and I know you're in the chat now, but we're doing a 10-book giveaway for the digital versions, because it's hard to mail to everybody. We're doing a 10-book giveaway sponsored by JSV Capital. Thanks, Jason. And what we're going to do is below, I want you to write, I want a book. Right? I said, I want a rock. I want a book. I'll go through the comments. I'll give it about 30 days. We'll pick 10 people. I'll reach out to you. You reach out to me, figure it out. We'll send you 10 books. And Dee is going to give us 1 signed copy, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah, hard copy. Grand prize winner. A personally autographed copy. Won't be a sticker on it.
Love
And
it.
when I always write, when I sign, I write, I want to rock, and I cross out rock and write right. and
I love
and
it.
because I'm so into writing, like I said, whether it's screenplays or books or stage plays, or I've co-created a children's animated series that's in development
Yes.
over at Peacock. That's right now, which I'll be writing music for. So I just love writing and creating.
Now, the other thing is really quick, because I don't want to dissuade anybody from buying it either. If you decide to buy it from Amazon or wherever you buy it from, and you get picked, you can just send me the receipt and proof that you bought it, and I'll just cash app you or Venmo the money. I find out sometimes people are like, you know what, I'm going to hold off to see if I won. You're welcome to buy it today. I'm going to put a link below to the Amazon link, and if you win, I'm just going to send you the funds in return. Give us a little tease about the book, if you don't mind, Dee.
You know what? I grew up in the 70s in Baldwin, Long Island,
Yeah.
and it was and in that town and the surrounding towns, there was a high school fraternity hierarchy. They had colors like college fraternities. They had Greek names like college fraternities. They had charters filed with the police department, and they were treated legitimately like fraternities. They were gangs. They were gangs. College fraternities don't rumble, and all the fraternities in high school did was party and rumble, and beat people up. But I thought this was the way of the world, and I was this big weird dude, not popular, so I'm just trying to make my way through this minefield, not getting my ass kicked, and just and survive high school. Well, it wasn't until I went out on the road and started talking to people and found out that this does not exist anywhere else. There's no high school fraternities. It's 5 towns in the South Shore of Nassau County on Long Island. And when I started telling the stories, and they're pretty horrific stories, violence and hazing and people were like all ears. They were amazed. So I always, I had this idea. Here I grew up in this minefield, so I saw the mines being laid out, and I knew where the mines were. But what if you transferred in your senior year from the Midwest, from Ohio, and you arrived in Baldwin, Long Island, and went day one to school and walked in this minefield, not knowing the lay of the land?
True.
Well, my main lead character, Bobby Kovacs, is just that. And in the first day, in trying to help his friend who's being picked on by one of these guys, he crosses the wrong guy and is now target number 1 for one of the worst of the fraternities. By the way, this is all based on actual events.
Yeah.
It's an amalgam of events, but it's put as this one character. Yeah. And now to survive, gets sucked into this whole fraternity world, because if you're being pursued by a fraternity, you got to join a fraternity. Yeah. And now it just, and there's a lot of partying and drugs and alcohol. And his life goes down this horrible downward spiral. And just one moment in time changed his life forever, And so it was this sort of observation, and just like I like to say what if kind of thing. But this happens in real life. We make choices, we make decisions, not knowingly, not realizing how grave it could be, and it winds up altering the entire course of our existence.
Your life, yeah. So,
it's kind of dark, very violent. I think The Outsiders meets The Wanderers, if anybody remembers that, set in the 70s. But it's people are saying it's a page turner, and I think you'll enjoy it.
God bless. I just want to do a shout out too. Dee has an awesome website. Check out DeeSnider.com. Kind of built by our team. Little shout out to our team.
Great team. They resurrected. It was such a mess. I had one of the. We got a minute here. You don't have to run your kids.
Let's hang out.
We're on my time. So it was 1990. I'm gonna say 3.
Yeah.
94. So and this fan who wrote a letter to me, and the letter really, sometimes I'll get letters. I've gotten amazing letters, and it'll touch me so much I'll pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And in particular, this fan was a fan of a band, had discovered a band that was shelved. Somehow he had a copy of a shelved record, Electra. Band was called Desperado, and this band was, I had put $500,000 into it. It was my life. It caused me to go into full bankruptcy when they shelved that record. He found a copy, and it was like his Bible. He loved this record so much.
Wow.
So So anyway, I called him to talk to him, and he said to me, "Hey, do you have a website?" This is like '94.
Yeah,
You know where things are at. And so I'm like, "No, I don't." He goes, "You want one?" I'm going, "Yeah, cool."
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, he didn't know how to do a website. He went and got a book, Websites for Dummies, and he put, and I didn't know any better. All of a sudden, I had DSnider.com. I had a website. Whoa, I'm in the modern era. I'm modern,
Yeah.
And so, so it built from this sort of like wobbly platform, and it always was very unwieldy. And I was introduced to Tom and said, "Help, please bring me into the modern age." And now it's beautiful and slick and sleek, and not slick in a bad way, just like it makes you want to keep looking at it and see what's going on. So thank you. Yeah.
Also, let's give a little plug. So we got the let's make sure we're here. We got obviously I love this. When you sent this over, I'm like, D, this has to be the front shot. We got a great logo here. I call it tiles. We got the second tile where we have his
what's happening now. It's always what's happening now. Then there was that ad for Clover. That's a funny commercial.
Yeah, tell us about that, because when again, like, it's funny, you won't hear from D for like weeks, and out of nowhere he's doing like a major commercial or a major book. He moves in silence, but he acts quick. Tell us about that commercial, because that was a fun one.
It was again. I'm self-deprecating to a fault, and I make fun of everybody, but I make fun of myself. And they sent me this offer. It's always big money to be the rock star in this commercial, where two friends, rock star, are out at dinner and they can't hear themselves talking over the background noise in a clinky restaurant. So we ultimately wind up singing to each other to be heard in our stage voices. I said, and we start, and then they bring over these special earplugs that I can now hear as I'm eating my dinner. So anyway, I read the script. I said, and I'm a writer. I said, "That's a funny script. I don't care if it's at my expense." Mind you, I just got another offer to do another hearing aid commercial. I'm going to be the hearing aid guy.
I love it. Now, listen, your fans age up. We got to service them. Bearded Fishy Cats. Colby's a good guy. What did Dee think of the Satanic Panic back in the days? A metal fan. I always thought it was nonsense. I don't believe this as much satanic influence in metal nowadays. I'm a huge metal fan. I'm not sure exactly.
I loved it. I loved it because it was for the most part, it was a complete misunderstanding by the parents.
Yeah.
They were misinterpreting the number of the beast, burn in hell. The number of the beast is about a dream that Bruce Dickinson had, that he met Satan, but it wasn't a real story. The Burn in Hell, my song Burn in Hell, was a hellfire and brimstone sermon against evil. But parents heard, "You're gonna burn in hell." They're like, "Oh my God, they're Satanists." So I loved it. But then it got wildly out of control, because this is the Reagan era. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're picketing our shows and canceling our shows because of what supposed satanic and bestiality and all these things they were accusing my band and bands of. So it got out of control, and that wound up with the whole Senate hearing and the PMRC thing.
And you pretty much told them to kick rocks.
Oh, I told them a lot of things. Yeah, it's fun. This is, cut the, okay. So I went there. I'll tell you, when I came back to Washington in '85, you could see marks on my body where they were poking me with 10-foot poles. I was the scourge of Washington. Cut to like 20 years later, I go back with the Grammys committee to help promote something for the Grammys. I'm telling you, the senators were running out of their offices to shake my hand and take pictures. Pelosi, McCarthy, everybody. D, how you doing? They didn't want to mess with me anymore. They remembered what I did the first time. So yeah, they were what a difference a couple of decades makes.
I love it. Got a question from a viewer, Donna. I think a newer viewer. How different is your on-stage persona versus Dee in regular life?
Night and day. You see, and I had this conversation with Mick Foley, the wrestler. If anybody knows Mick Foley, because Mick is an author, a brilliant charitable person, a dear friend. He's a father. He's a family man, a Christmas junkie like me. And we talked about the fact that people think that we are putting on an act when we're performing. And how we'd explained it is, it's two sides of the same coin. It's heads and tails. You can't have the coin. One doesn't exist without the other. We are the rational, logical, intelligent, caring people. We are off stage because we're allowed to express our shall we say, darker side on stage.
Yeah.
So and this is one of the things that I love about, I think, not love about, I tout that heavy metal allows people to get it out. Go to the show, throw your fists in the air, get in the mosh pit, scream, yell, shout, sweat. I promise you, everybody walks out of there smiling and feeling better because you gotta let it out. So it's always been an outlet for me for my darker tendencies, so I can go home and empty the diaper pail, you know.
Now, I know it's a little different now, flying out, the celebrity for the bar mitzvah or the graduation, the private parties. I know, or Super Bowl.
Yeah. It's another horror thing we do.
But give me, you don't got to get the dollar figure. Give me the craziest, the chic. Give me the craziest, one time fly out. We're going to take it, bag, go home. Have you had one of those or two of those where like, what am I doing? Hey, I'm doing it, but like, what the F?
Yeah. Private jet, out to San Francisco for a private party with about 30 people there. And they had me there. They had Tone Loc. They had the Sugar Hill Gang. They had, I'm trying to think who else. We're all in this little bar. We're sitting back there going, what are we doing? And we look at each other, and we all know what we're doing. We're getting paid. And we went out there, and this dude was celebrating his 40th birthday, and he spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to have his party in his backyard with his friends the way he wanted it.
Wow. You still get those requests?
Yeah. Yeah. I still do them. And sometimes bizarre. There's one project that it's called Kings of Chaos. Okay. Matt Storm of Guns N' Roses. He has sort of like Mission Impossible thing. If you remember, Mr. Phelps would go and he'd pull out the players. Well, it's a rotating band that goes and do huge festivals, but sometimes it does private events. And so I remember doing, and I've done big festival shows with these guys, with Stephen Piercy and Robin from Cheap Trick and Warren DeMartini and the bass player, all these like great players. Yeah. But also I did this one private event, and it was like in a town square. This place was like, this was weird. This was like Westworld. It was in Deep South, and it was this gated, secured. I'm just telling you, I didn't know until I got there. It was just whiter than white. It was like the good old days. And they had a town square with a bandstand, and me and Wilson and Billy Gibbons are up there with this backup band of guys from Guns N' Roses and Rat, and we're playing for like 25 people sitting at picnic tables. Picnic tables.
Oh my God.
But they paid a lot of money to have that experience, but it was a weirdest thing for me. I've never gotten over it.
I got a funny Ann Wilson story. So I had her on the pod, and it was like a week after where what happened, like the sister's boyfriend beat up her son, like something crazy happened in the news. I had her on the pod, and like the public, like, you're not going to talk about it. You're not going to talk about it. You're not going to talk. So I had like everything prepped, different kind of questions, but we angle around to try to get to it. But they were like, she, like, it was on a phone. It wasn't even like on this and stream. And I didn't prepare as much as I wanted to. So I said something. I'm like, hey, when you make it to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who are you going to thank? She goes, well, I'm kind of already in it, and I thank, like, and she was very pleasant about it. And my sister to this day is like, I'm an idiot. That's my like, I just totally flubbed it. But she was gracious about it. And it's funny because like a lot of my old interviews with you, and from the old one and then the recent one on the audio, her as well, there's these little pops now and again you get from like some of the old interviews when you do some rock people. I find it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done a lot of interviewing myself, radio and TV. And as a matter of fact, I interviewed Ann and Nancy Wilson on a VH1 special. Oh, wow. And when they walked in and they saw me sitting there, and it was out at Sturgis. And and I was out, and I'm like got a leather biker cap on, and I'm more biker than rocker, and they come walking in. I just see the look on her face, like, oh my God, what did they do? But by the time I finished the interview, when they cut, and as a matter of fact, they played it on VH1, she turns, she goes, he's really good. And she said, and they kept it. And I was like, boy, that was like, for me, because I'm always trying to it's not that I want to, forget where I was. I'm
Yeah.
proud of where I was,
Yeah.
but I will also want the opportunity to do new things like go on Broadway or go on a TV show or direct a movie or write a book. And I want people to look at it and go, hey, he did a good job. And that's all. Or he did his best. You can say that. You know what? He did his best. He gave it his all. And I'll accept that as well. And so it means the world to me when someone does say, hey, you did that really good. You were a good interviewer. Hey, but with that, speaking of interviewers, I got to go. But thank you so much, man. Pleasure talking to you. And of course, we're interacting because this guy handles my website and everything.
Love it, brother.
And please check out my book, people. If I could do money back guarantee, I would. I remember I did that I had a project called Van Helsing's Curse, and it was a Halloween rock orchestra. And I would go on the radio in town and say, money back guarantee. I will be out in the lobby afterwards with a wad of cash. If you don't like this show, I'll give you your money back. And after every show, I would go out into the lobby and be standing out there with a pocket, with a bankroll in there. Nobody ever came back in. Maybe they didn't have the balls, but I like to think the show was that good that nobody said, "Hey, Dee, it was great. We loved it." So I wish I could stand outside the bookstore, but I can't.
Talk soon. Right, everybody. Thanks again. Ciao.
Take care. Bye.
All right, everybody. So just a few things. Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Donna. That was fun. I did subscriber mode only in the comments because I didn't want like too many comments, and plus I want to make it more about the interview. This is gonna be big. It's gonna be a good one. So we're gonna keep it on as a live and keep it on the channel. Dee has a big audience. He agreed to kind of share with it, and he's very generous with his time. He was on the books for a half hour, and if he kept saying I was kept looking to close. He kept saying, keep going. His publicist had him on a tight schedule. Maybe he opened up, but he's a good friend. He gave us more time than he needed to. He generally gives us more information than he gives other folks because I think of the relationship. So check out DeeSnider.com, DeeSniderBooks.com, or on Amazon. Get the book. I'm going to give around 10 copies plus the grand prize. Right? I want the book below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like the channel. We're transitioning over back to the New Theory podcast. If you like what you saw, don't be shy. Hit the thanks. You feel free to donate to the channel. This new channel format, we're looking to step it up. We're going to have bigger guests. We're going to do some really cool things, which does require a lot of expenses. So any support for the channel is greatly appreciated. So I'm Tom Vecchia, back with the New Theory podcast. I want to thank everybody in the live chat and anybody who watches on the replay. Thanks so much.